addition to your technical practice, you need to practice performing, all right? The reason for this is fairly simple. Basically, you usually do your practice in a comfortable, familiar environment. You are free to make mistakes. In fact, as I mentioned in the previous lessons, you need to make mistakes. You're also free to stop whenever you like, to correct things like technique, posture, diction, expression, and choreography. However, in a performance situation, not only might you be feeling nervous and uncomfortable in an unfamiliar environment, but you're not really expected to stop if you make mistakes. For many singers, this is what contributes to feeling nervous. You only get one shot, and if you muck it up, you can't stop and do it again better. However, this particular issue needn't be an issue. Remember this next piece of advice. You will always perform that which you practice most. So if, during your practice session, you constantly allow yourself to stop when you make a mistake, then more often than not, you will do this during performance, or at the very least, you may hesitate and momentarily be distracted by whatever went wrong. So, how to remedy this? Simple. Stop stopping, okay? Part of being a performer is having the ability to mask anything that hasn't gone to plan and being able to, under any reasonable circumstances, continue to deliver your story. There'll be plenty of time after your performance to review and refine your technique and your song. The story should always have priority. Being able to deliver it on the wings of a solid vocal technique is a bonus for both you and your audience. Now, I know it sounds like I'm saying your technique shouldn't be your main focus overall. It should. However, when you're on that stage, you must stay in character, regardless of what's going on technically. You see, and you would know this yourself, when we hear someone sing, we listen to the story of that song. Whether we hear their story through the words or through the sounds or the music is irrelevant. While we're listening, we think and feel the emotional content of that story, and we also play out that story in many different ways in our minds. Humans think in images. For example, if I mention the word refrigerator, what do you see in your mind's eye? The word refrigerator? No. You see an image of a refrigerator. When your audience hears your story, they'll be seeing images in their minds related to that story, and often seeing themselves in those images. In other words, they're imagining themselves as the protagonist or the main character in the story you're telling. If you suddenly stop or roll your eyes or, make it known to your audience that something's gone wrong, i.e. you come out of character, suddenly they're thrown out of the vortex of the story because you asked by your out of character actions for them to focus on something other than the story you were telling. Bottom line is, if you make a mistake, hide it. Okay, unless it's a really big one, and then just be graceful about it and move on quickly. Re-establish your character and continue the story. So how do you learn to do that? Simple. Practice it. Quite simple. It's important to dedicate some of your practice time to performance mastery. Once you've done your warm-ups and your tech work, practice implementing those techniques into your song. Then practice performing the song, right? Use your mirror or your video camera as your audience, and whatever you do, don't stop or fiddle or roll your eyes or get distracted by a noise outside, or a thought about, what are you going to cook for dinner tonight? Just practice singing through your entire song as though it were a real life performance. If you make mistakes, no probs. Just make some mental notes and go over them after your performance. And just to finish up here, I want to tell you a very short story about an experiment that was done with 2 basketball teams. Kind of random. Okay, so all members of both teams, 2 basketball teams, all members of both teams were monitored whilst they shot a specific number or a specified number of baskets, at which point each player's score was recorded. Then the 2 teams were separated. One team was required to continue practicing shooting hoops over the next month. The other team was required to visualize shooting hoops over the next month without actually physically practicing it. Okay? After a month, the 2 teams were brought together again for testing, and the results were very interesting. All right? The team that had been practicing shooting baskets actually scored less. Even though they scored more overall than their first time through, they actually scored less than the team who had simply been visualizing shooting baskets. The relevance of this story to your singing is that when you practice performing, that's great, and you will get better at performing. However, when you practice and visualize yourself performing, your results will be far greater than practice alone. Don't leave your performance practice until you get on the stage. Do it every time you sing, and whilst you're doing it, imagine your audience in front of you and sing to them.